Okay. Let's see. All right, here goes. All right, this is not financial advice. I don't want you to think money's my only concern. But this is all part of the plan. We got to trust the plan, right? We need more people who have integrity in the world of finance and economics. There's nothing wrong with being a profiteer, but it's may be a person of your word. Negotiate hard. Negotiate hard. You set your prices. You live up to your end of the bargain, right? That's part of this new meritocracy. If I'm saying that right. So there's going to be about $10 trillion that rolls over in the next 10 years, about $1 trillion a year from the baby boomers, right? So it's kind of our duty, our right to, as Americans, to create a strong demographic and a good economy to buy some of those businesses. Okay? It's a lot easier to buy a functioning business than it is to start one from the ground up. 95% of startup businesses fail within the first 5 years. The numbers are just really stacked against the startup. And 90% of the tax code, right? If you look, it's like this huge tax code is written for business owners. The U.S. is not owned by Americans. People don't realize this. The U.S. is owned by international conglomerate groups. A lot of chefs in the kitchen, a lot of hands in the pot, right? If you just go back the Constitution and how everything was created, you see that this is the marketplace. It's owned internationally. So I think what Team Trump and what the people who are on the right side fighting the good fight are trying to do is put the hands into the Americans, right? But we got to get off the tee. We can't be living on imported goods and borrowed money on its credit and debt system, right? So part of that, you get the money straight, and then everything else works itself out, right? You got to get the money straight. So part of politics is heavily interwoven into economics, and the universe is contractual. I know you say, all right, where's the truth? With this channel and what we're advertising here on this channel, but it all ties into economics, right? If you really want to move the buck, create change, it all starts with it all goes through legislation. Really, groundswell is great, and a lot of stuff, good things have come out of that. But you really, top down is where the whales control the market, and that works the same for social and rules and laws as well. So this is what we think a modern portfolio should look like. Woke don't mean broke. You fix the money, you fix the problem. You could solve whatever the issue is, right? You can't part of the truth movement and Q and all that is you can't profile a solution unless you identify the problem. So it's this all works on many layers, and part of it is getting the money right. So we need people who are less controlled. It's a lot harder to buy somebody. Look at Trump, right? He was not somebody that you could easily buy because he had his own money, right? And that was something that he had built up over time. And then you can go into the aspect of how long had Trump known that? There's a lot of other presidents that kind of knew that they were going to be president as kids. You hear those stories of Bush and Sotoro and others that kind of knew this, right? Whether it's a temporal, time jump that they are kind of filled in with this stuff. That's a whole other gambit, right? And we're not opposed to going there on this channel. It's just for right now, we're just going to talk about what we think a modern portfolio looks like. But it's important to I have friends who are like, I'm not into finance and I want to live off the grid and buck the system and I'm not. You can do that by all means, but it's money is today's god, and it buys you access to resource. It's a lot harder to operate and make change if you couch surfing, or even if you're off the grid, or you still got to buy supplies, and getting set up off the grid is not cheap, unless you're completely. That's a whole other avenue. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to stand our ground, fight for this country, and affect change, through decency. But you got to be tough and you got to be smart too. So let's allow this money to just make us more of who we already are, right? We don't want to turn into some rich prick or something, right? But what we like is there's the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant, and so his is a little different. This is what we're going to slate it up to be. You got your cash flow, money coming in, whether that's W-2, whether you're a business owner. Again, tax laws benefit the business owner in this country, so it can be a pain getting started up and growing if you buy an existing business or if you have yours and you're already there. But it's what you do with the money. It doesn't necessarily matter how you get it, as long as it's not nefarious or you're leaving a trail of blood behind you to get it. We're talking about honest money. So then it's the time, and then it's what are your expenses, right? If there's a really good book, The Millionaire Next Door, and they go into this deep dive about how most people, and the book was written in the late 90s, so bear that in mind. But a lot of people in that time that they interviewed or were part of the study were living in these fancy houses, great neighborhood, wore the Brooks Brothers suits. They looked wealthy, but the study showed that middle income earners, or people who lived in a more of a blue class, working class neighborhood, their net worths were better. And they coined it to the buying habits and philosophy of the used car buyer, right? All those fancy people, a lot of them had these new cars, and I'll stop holding this on. But okay, so the other thing is investments. You got to treat an investment like a bill. What I mean by that is it's regular, it's consistent. You're taking the investment seriously so that you can have a higher net worth, and it's not just something you do quarterly and just like, oh, I heard this investment and somebody told me about it, and I'll put a few shekels into this stock. No. You take the investment seriously and you treat it like a monthly, weekly, regular expense. Okay? So that's our chart. That's, kind of how we look at this, long-term, short-term. So you don't have to be a money guy in the traditional sense. Right, I'm not necessarily. I was Academy of Finance. I'm from the East Coast. I had some family on Wall Street, off Wall Street. You just kind of grow up around it in that neck of the woods, right? I don't know if it's a East Coast thing, where you're just like, hey, I'm going to start this business, and blah, 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 blah. People are always kicking that sort of stuff around. But again, you don't have to necessarily be a traditional finance guy to adopt some of this thinking and strategy and implement it. Again, you don't have to be the richest guy either. In the Millionaire Next Door, some of the people who earned less money had a much higher net worth. It's just how they approached and appreciated money, and ultimately what they did with it. Right. So investments are to be treated like a regular bill. Plan for your future. That's how we can kind of overthrow some of the old guard in the old system and move forward and get decent people into the upper echelons of politics. It's how we move the needle, right? With smart, decent people with money, right? It's kind of what Trump and his team emulate, what they stand for. So we believe crypto is the greatest wealth transfer of the modern times. People say of all time, who knows? There's different civilizations, different, you things like Tartaria and other great civilizations, right? The Hyperboreans, who knows, what money looked like with them, and then, if there was this type of manipulation, if they had some sort of transfer. So I don't like to say of all time. I like to say of this current epoch, right? This is the greatest money transfer. And we believe that, there's evidence to show that the Mag 7, right, your Magnificent 7 and a lot of your Fortune 500 companies have already been on blockchain. It's a lot harder to manipulate. Blockchain in its nature is a timestamp, a wallet address from each transaction. It's a lot harder to manipulate. Not to say there's not a backdoor to it, but it just, there's evidence to prove that these companies have been on a blockchain ledger for a long time, since the early 2000s or what have you. So that's, investors investigate, that's where we're headed. So you might as well capitalize on, investment possibilities. We believe that has to do with crypto and blockchain and digital currency. It's kind of the language of AI. And let's face it, if we are headed to become interstellar, and there's going to be a company, a business running, doing business on Earth, on a space station, on Mars, or any other celestial planet, you're going to need it in a digital format, right? So that's why we believe the Mag 7 and a lot of these Fortune 500 companies have already been on the blockchain. But, there's, investing is always a bit of a gamble, right? You mitigate your risk through research. So it's like, okay, what stocks, what cryptos, what portfolios, do you invest in? And that's where the research comes in. Maybe we can assist with some of that here. But if you look at the movie Sneakers, they talk about XRP. There's a great Instagram, a short that explains why Ripple and XRP are part of this new incoming economic technology, digital format currency. Ripple's been around a long time, and they tried to redo the fiat money system with Ripple in like the late 90s, I think, or something. So then XRP is now part of Ripple. They were two different technologies, if you will, at one time, but now they're combined, right? So we think it will take over the SWIFT system. So we if you check out Jake Claver and the XRP information, I think it's pretty potent, and it's the real deal. So we know fiat's doomed to end. It always has been, and these companies are already on the blockchain ledger. Digital currency is the language of AI. It's all, you have to follow the breadcrumbs. It's all one and the same, all connected at some point, right? So no one will work harder for you than your army of dollars, right? That's why it's important to have a portfolio. Again, it's what you do with the money. Let's see. Okay, it's one thing for consumers to have a digital wallet and make an exchange, but when a company puts their entire ledger, okay, it's going over some of my notes. When a company puts their entire ledger on the blockchain, it's industry changing, and we're already there, right? That's what I was saying with the Mag 7. So let's get into some investing. It's not so much about how you make your money; it's about what you do with it, and let's have a conversation about strategy. So number one, crypto is time sensitive. The greatest wealth transfer of this current human epoch. This is the 1929, according to Raoul Pal. This is the greatest wealth transfer, like they did in the Great Depression in 1929, where essentially what happened is the people running the show, the groups running the show, crashed the market intentionally, right? They bought back up all the same stocks that they had crashed for cents on the dollar, and they had what do you call it? Quadrupled their wealth in one short cycle. And so that's kind of what crypto is going to do. And of course, it's the ones that you get, right? So it's time sensitive because, like Kevin O'Leary said, and I'm not trying to say he's like some role model. We're just gathering information and using what's helpful. But he did say that crypto would become another sector of the S&P 500. And so whether you use Robinhood, Coinbase, Crypto.com, Kraken, there's a few others. Those are the ones that we like. Most of them have claimed to have passed an audit, and they're just big players in industry. So again, check out Raoul Pal. Big shout out to Real Vision. He has helped me over the years studying this stuff. Crypto has saved my hide. I would not be here doing this if I didn't establish a crypto portfolio and be able to, getting into this information, the Q stuff, and just being a truther, a patriot, sticking up for ourselves, right? We sometimes people like that, target individuals, their bank accounts, stuff, wonky shit starts happening, right? So I'll just leave it at that. So crypto is really what has been able to allow me to be here and do this, all right? And I don't want to get too far into that. But again, Raoul Pal's don't fuck this up theory. Sorry for the language, but that's what he calls it. So stick with the big three, right? If you don't know Raoul Pal's story, check it out. He can go, you can find that easily. But he was a Saks Fifth Avenue, prominent family, London Wall Street. Nobody knows better business and money better than London. Somewhere in the, I think just around COVID, he long-term investor, hangs out with all those well-to-do people in the London Wall Street. He drained his stocks, his bonds, his funds. I call it like daylight portfolio, right? Because it's the traditional sense. It's what everybody does, and you got 1,000,001 people that'll, if you do this, all this strategy that's age old. So I think it's kind of like the daylight, traditional sense of it, investing is just how I refer to it. Because all this new stuff is kind of, the jury's still hung, and a lot of it's, a lot of gray area to crypto and why, and whatever. So he drained his regular portfolio and went completely crypto, and he was blackballed for a while. People were like, "No, you're crazy. You're kind of a household name." He was, and he was coming out publicly saying that he was 100% crypto. So a lot of people turned their back on him at the time. I think things have since changed for him, but he's a really cool dude. Check him out, Real Vision, Raoul Pal. So he just talks about whatever money you're willing to invest in crypto, right? And I would say if you're skittish, use 20% of your portfolio or the money that you're willing to invest. If you've got more knowledge, more information, and you're a little bit more risk tolerant, go 40, go 60. That's up to you're going to have to figure that out as to what you're confident in. For me, pretty much 95% crypto. Just not gonna BS about it. Not everybody has that type of threshold or that type of confidence, the type of appetite for it. But again, just stick to the big three: your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your Solana. Just for easy math, let's stick to. Let's say you got $100,000 and you want to invest it, and that's not your whole portfolio. We'll get into some other. You want to diversify as well, but you stick to your big three. You got this $100K that you're going to invest, so maybe you take, 20, 30 grand of it, right? And you go 10 grand Bitcoin, 10 grand Ethereum, 10 grand Solana. Okay, wait, let me back this up. So let's say you go 40 grand, right? With your portfolio, you go 10, 10, and 10 on those three. The last 10 grand that you have, you can split it up between things like XRP, SUI, XLM. There's other, more speculative cryptos that you can get into. You'll have to do some of the research on that. But just stick to your big three and you'll be fine. And then, I think everyone should have a bag of XRP. So even if you did 10, 10, 10, 10, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and XRP, that's 40 grand right there. You just buy and chill. We're not day trading. We're not trying to get a Lamborghini, and we don't want FU money, and it's not about throwing it in anybody's face. It's about building a portfolio. It's about being secure, being more of who you are. Let's, stand up for this country. We need smart, strong people and a strong demographic in, politics and in economics, right? Ray Dalio, Jim Richards, right? Think like that. So that's your crypto portfolio. Now, we used 40 grand of this 100. You have 60K left. Stack that IRA. You can get a crypto IRA because if the calculations are right, if crypto is going to become a new sector of the S&P, you can put this 7 grand into your IRA, your Roth. That's the max limit per year. It was 6, it went up to 7 recently, in the last year or so. So you take that 7 grand, you put it into, a high yield account. You can allocate your funds in your Roth to wherever you want in like a brokerage account, right? So you can put it on crypto too, because if crypto does go to the moon, that 7K could potentially turn into buco bucks, right? Because it fluctuates with the market. So if you take your Roth and you put it on stocks and your stock does crap, or if you do crypto and your crypto does crap, eventually that could be subject to whatever the loss and gain of the market is. So just do your research on where you want to put your IRA money. But the rules with your Roth IRA is you can't take it out to your 65, or else you'll see penalties. There's a couple exceptions, but I'm not the best on that. Just this is a back burner. Stack your IRA. Try and get that 7K into it every year, and then you can mix match with that 7K. It doesn't have to all be, Bitcoin or XRP or all be stock, right? You can put it in different places. You can, in a brokerage account that's linked to your Roth IRA, you can adjust where you want the money. It doesn't have to all be in one position. Find a company, it's Fidelity, or there's a lot of other Swan, Alto IRA, I Trust Capital. These are all IRA all IRA companies that you can do crypto and you can do stocks as well. And you can just do a high yield savings account with your local credit union or something. If you don't have the appetite for this. But you should have a crypto an account, right? You should be actively investing in crypto, and you should have an IRA. What you do with it is kind of that's up to you. Stocks. Have a stock portfolio, right? You're not just, the guy on the couch with a crypto portfolio. He doesn't pay his taxes. He's not looking at anything else. This is not what we're coaching here. This is not what we're advocating for. Okay, so have some stocks, diversify. We like Tesla. We like Nvidia. We like the Mag 7. They've split a bunch of times. They've have been $1,000 stocks. They're everything's pretty low right now, a couple $100, but they've split a bunch. So they're probably not going to 100x, right? But again, it's just a safe play. If you have this 100K, we used 47 of it, right? Because you stacked your IRA, the 40 went to crypto. So now we have 53 left. Take 10 of it. Take 15, 20 of it, right? This is the part where you have to play with it and do your research to mitigate your risk and what you have a family, where are your finances at? Are you have a mortgage? But taking 10K and putting it in something like Tesla, Nvidia, the Mag 7s, we like Paramount as well. Paramount just did a merger, and UFC is going to be on Paramount. So that's a stock. Palantir, Hood, which is Robinhood, Bloom Energy, TSM. These are TSM. I think is a technology company that is doing software for artificial intelligence. So any one of these AI stocks, they should be a hit. So, and there's something called AU7. Now this is a sleeper that I found just watching some financial news from an investor, and this is only on the European market. AU7. If you can get it, get some, because it's a sleeper, but apparently they are an AI company, but they're building the bots as well. But they're also doing the software. So they'll be building LLM models and processing chips to put in their own robot of if you will. So most companies, even like Tesla's not doing software. They'll do the hardware. Nvidia, it doesn't do hardware. They just do the software. So that's the connection between those two companies. Is Nvidia will supply Tesla with the processors and the memory and the LLM, and that's everything upgradable, and the memory will go through Nvidia, but Tesla will be making the actual physical robot itself, right? So from what this AU7, they'll do both, from what I understand. So it's still fairly inexpensive. That'd be a good, you take $5,000, forget about it, buy and chill. We'll come back to a lot of this stuff 3, 4, 5 years from now. Everything's going to be ballooned. So you just want to buy and hold. Now's the time to get in. This is all just beginning. You're not too late in crypto, right? This is just getting started. So real estate, get you some dirt. Use it as a backup plan, right? If you've got a house that you can, depending on what state you're in. I'm in Texas. You can still take $200,000 and get 250, 300 grand and get a nice, decent size house for 300 grand, a quarter, half acre, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, something like that. 300K. A mortgage payment on that is like $1,500 a month. If you got a family, if you got a decent job, get a roommate. Get you a house, get you some dirt, get a mortgage, right? It's a backup plan. If everything does go to crap, at least you got a place to lay your head, and your family. Get some ammo, get some. You know what I mean? I don't really advocate that, but just a worst case scenario. But definitely, you want some property. And rental property is great for your tax strategy. That's the back end of all of this. Is you got to have a tax strategy. Life insurance. Life insurance is a good investment. There's some great books. What would the Rockefellers do? Becoming your own bank. That's like a whole strategy in itself. Some people just do that, and they do very well. Some people are just real estate, and they're have a huge real estate portfolio. I think a little bit of all of this is what will buy you some lifestyle, time, and money, and give you some freedoms that the upper class enjoy. They know how to navigate all this. You don't have to be an expert in all of it, but know enough to be able to keep up with the experts in the room, and then just find, out of all of this, what works for you, and then you can go kind of heavy in your one department. But have that crypto portfolio, have your IRA, have some stocks, get some gold and silver, right? The problem with that is if it's gold, precious metals is more a preservation of wealth if you already have it. Yeah, you can get some couple gold bars here. You can get a ton of of silver rounds. But if the economy does go to crap, it's like what are you carrying around, and you're exchanging? I'll give you this gold bar for a loaf of bread. It's like, if there is an EMP and the lights shut out, right? And they say like, I'm not doing crypto because if the lights go out, you'll be off the internet, but you'll still have your portfolio on your phone. Let's think this through. So let's say the internet gets shut off. You still have your phone that's got battery life on it. You still have your crypto portfolio. You take screenshots of what's in there, and then when the lights do come back on, you know, a lot of these big companies are FDIC backed now. So it's not like the early, 2010s, right? Like, if the internet goes out and you can prove that you had this money in your crypto portfolio on this exchange, the word is that they're supposed to be able to reimburse you for it. So, for those who are like, I'm not going crypto because the lights go out type of thing, where it's you still have your phone with all your data on it, right? Just bear that in mind. So we think that you should have some silver and some gold. It's just storage. If you've got $1 million worth of gold and silver, that's, where are you hiding that? Like, you know what I mean? You got to get a wine cellar in your basement, and it's stacked to the gills, and that's just, I don't know. Some people that's like, the only thing they're really comfortable with. I've come across people like that, and especially in the truth disclosure movement, and bless them. I think you want to be a little bit more switched up. Everything's going digital. Musk and Bezos have talked about helping humanity become interstellar. Just keep that in mind. Is if all that's true, if this is true, then that must be true. I'm probably butchering that, but everything's going digital, and so again, it's the language of AI. I think we're safe now to do some of this crypto stuff. Just, if you want to have a cold storage wallet, or a wallet off the exchange, it's probably the best bet. But again, the tax strategy is everything on this. You got to pay your taxes. You don't want to do the Wesley Snipes thing. Check it out. He made a bunch of money, in the early 90s, and then just kind of like said F the system, and he didn't pay his taxes. Then he got hacked for it, in the end. It come to mind on a, not a give or take him, as an actor or whatever, but just, so life insurance is another strategy. Your tax strategy, there's someone called Mark Kohler, J.K. Claver, and there's a guy named Skylar Coe of Elevated Wealth Planning. They're in Utah. A lot of good finance stuff comes out of Utah. They do their own thing, and they're just game tight over there with that. So the Mark Kohler, KKOS lawyer, check him out. He's in Utah as well. I think he was once a California Orange County guy, so he navigated all of that and then eventually said, all right, I'm out. And then Jay Claver, who's in Dallas, Fort Worth. Awesome stuff. I've heard nothing but great stuff about him. His Digital Ascension group, check him out. He's talk about putting your portfolio in a trust, putting your crypto portfolio in a trust, protecting your assets, a revocable living trust. I think it's called Think Empire. So, there's a lot to navigate here, a lot of moving parts, but you get your portfolio, you get your stocks, your IRA, you get some real estate, some gold, some silver, you have a tax strategy, you've got some life insurance, and then you start putting all this stuff in a trust. You got to protect your tail, right? And if you've got 30, 50, even 100 grand, right? Let's say your net worth is just 100 grand, which is not a lot, but in the truth movement, a lot of us have been, heavily targeted. So it's tough to build up this multi-million-dollar portfolio, right? So even if at 100 grand, you don't really have to worry about this trust and stuff yet. But as we move forward, if we see some market correction, and eventually you put all this together, you build a portfolio, and then things go our way, all of a sudden you wake up, or maybe it's a slow burn, all of a sudden you've got a portfolio of a couple million. That's when you say, okay, or even $500,000, even 500 grand. You're like, okay, let me start. Usually a trust company, it's like 7, 8, 10 grand. Like we'll do all the legal fees, we'll set up your trust, and we'll walk you through it. It's not, something you want to do on yourself. Yeah, a couple $100, you research it and you do it yourself. Don't do that. Just spend the money, right? If you've got $500,000 or more, go find somebody that does this professionally, that's lawyered up. This is what they do. All these companies, all the ones that I named, that's what they do. They charge 7, 8, 10 grand, something like that, depending on what services they're offering you. But again, it's buy and chill. We're not trying to day trade. We're not trying to live the life of a day trader and walk around with flashy jewelry, and that's not what we do. That's not what we teach. That's not what's moving the needle here. That's not, we're up against some serious stuff. So we need the money. Play it smart. Be decent, but be tough. And inform yourself. Arm yourself with information, right? My dad was MIO for the Navy. They'll although I did not serve, I just always kind of connected myself with that and studied a lot. And, in the last episode, I explained where a lot of my information came from, and I've been walking, fighting the good fight for over a decade with this kind of stuff. So, we need people who are informed and on the right side of things. So, long-term investing, building long-term generational wealth, it's supposed to be boring. Watch the paint dry. Just buy and chill, okay? The best trade that you can make, the best trader that's out there is the one that bought and then died and never did anything, right? And that's, I'm being facetious, but with that line of thinking, you'll be Nancy Pelosi. You'll one couple trades, you just bought early and you just chilled the F out, and you forgot about it, and then that turned into, it went to the moon. So also find a community, live your best life. This if all this does turn our way, and we're not just this struggling truth crowd, right? If in the Bible version of the meek, which is check it out in the Bible. The meek does not mean like weak. It means quite the opposite. It means like informed and tough, and someone who stands up for themselves. So if the meek is inheriting the earth in this system of meritocracy and this new age movement of disclosure, and we'll have money, we'll be strong, we'll be smart, we'll be decent, right? Meritocracy. May people get paid what they're worth, right? You hear Musk talk about work will be optional. Who knows? And when that happens, Jensen from NVIDIA, he's like kind of smirking and scratching his head saying, hey, well, you let me know when that happens, Elon. So I think it's somewhere in between, right? But find a community, live your best life, smile, enjoy your time, read, learn, expand, grow. Part of all of this, again, back to the beginning, it's not about the money, but it's just access to resource. It's about not having to be in this fight or flight mode and struggle every day, right? Being able to do what you want with your time. So, life is about meaningful business and meaningful relationships. I think it was Jim Richards or Ray Dalio that said that. One of them, I forget. They're both great stuff. Check them out. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Stay vigilant. Arm yourselves with information. You never get in a car and unless you're on a get lost ride or something, but you never get in a car and just go somewhere without knowing the destination, right? Either you plug it into your GPS or you know in your head where the location is and how to get there. Military will advocate that. Nothing more important than information, because that's what allows you to know where you're going, right? So that's the same with all this finance and portfolio stuff, is you got to know how to navigate it. That's the map. This is our loose map of where we're going, right? So just find your place in all of this, right? What you're comfortable with mitigate your risk through research, but build your portfolio, right? Anyway, stay strong, stay alert, and let's arm ourselves with information. Oos.